Well, there it is. Milan's coaching saga is officially over. Stefano Pioli has been replaced by Paulo Fonseca. This is the same coach that once walked into a Champions League press conference wearing the Mask of Zorro costume. The appointment was officially confirmed by Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but one of the biggest questions on the minds of Milan fans is, what are his tactics? What kind of systems does he play with? What kind of formation does he implement? So let's bring out the tactical board and dive right in. So earlier on, one of the journalists said that the appointment of Paulo Fonseca as the coach of Milan, it's like almost an extension of the Stefano Pioli era and system. Simply put, Fonseca's teams are built around an attacking mindset, prioritizing possession-based football focused on creating loads of goal-scoring opportunities. And those opportunities are created through quick and incisive passing. He plays with a preferred style of a 4-2-3-1, just like Stefano Pioli. Now, Fonseca in the past has talked about how in all his teams, he likes to implement a playing style where his sides dominate the games. He's not one of those coaches that is comfortable sitting back, eating up the pressure. He wants his sides to control the game. How his teams build up from the back is an important aspect of Fonseca's play. The coach has mentioned in the past that he likes to give the wingers a lot of freedom to go up. This is where it will be business as usual for Theo Hernandez, but this is also where and why I believe Milan is actually chasing some right back profiles like Thiago Santos, like Matty Cash, because they have more of an attacking profile compared to Davide Calabria. And I think that might be what Fonseca is looking for from his right back. Under Pioli, Milan saw a system where Davide at times played as a third center back while Theo attacked up. This is also because Milan didn't have any good quality central defensive midfielders. I think that particular absence forced Davide to assist more defensively. In Fonseca's system, he moves the three attacking players forward, but at Shakhtar, he preferred a system where the wingers actually played inside of the defense and not outside. Under Pioli, Leao played out wider to stretch the field, while Theo often dropped in as an inverted fullback. But in Shakhtar Donetsk, Fonseca played a system where the front attackers played more so within the lines, while the wingers were given a lot of freedom, and they're the ones who played more so towards the outside. He is a proponent of positional play, where the teams maintain a specific structure and spacing to effectively control the game, and ideally exploit spaces. This involves players understanding their roles and positions on the field. That understanding would ensure the balance that Fonseca is looking for. I think in the system that we're kind of discussing right now, where the wingers are a lot more engaged, I think this would be heavily beneficial to someone like Christian Pulisic. I think he's a player that we've, obviously talked about the fact that why doesn't Milan play him as a number 10 instead? I think as a right winger, if he's allowed to play more central, and it's the right back that Milan has is going much wider, Pulisic's position will be much more to the middle and closer to goal, compared to the kind of positioning that we noticed that he had when he's explicitly playing from the right flank, making those runs almost from the corner flag. And this system would also mean that, Fonseca's Portuguese player Rafael Leao is also playing much more central. This potential change would require Rafael Leao to really tighten up his ability to finish his chances. If he's playing far more centrally compared to a more wider position, he'll probably have much more chances right at goal. And we've noticed that to be a little bit of a weak spot in Leao's portfolio, and he's gonna have to strengthen that. He will have to start taking those chances. Now, while the attackers are moving up, he likes to have the two-man backline turn into a three-man line, with the defensive midfielder dropping back. In case the opposition has their number 9 and their number 10 pressing our two center backs, he wants to create the numerical advantage with the midfielder dropping in as a third center back. This is actually very similar to Pioli's system. Pioli used to have Calabria drop back as that third defender. It sounds like Fonseca in his system would actually prefer the central defensive midfielder to drop back, which is exactly why making a signing for that particular role becomes very important, and is exactly why Fofana is being so heavily linked with Milan. This is a Ligue 1 player that Fonseca has been familiar with from the league itself, and for the manager who's actually familiar with that particular player might be the perfect profile. Now, this is what the attackers do, and this is what the defense does. How does the midfield work? In one of his interviews, Fonseca talked about a midfield setup in which he wants Milan's two remaining midfielders to play central and attack the opposition's two midfielders. He talks about how attracting the opposition's two midfielders would actually create space in between the lines, and the midfield can then find a way to engage the attackers up front. And if, for whatever reason, the opposition's midfielders choose to sit back, then Milan's midfield will have the time and space to create comfortably from the middle of the park. In multiple interviews, Fonseca has stressed on the importance of the role that his fullbacks would play in his system. And that certainly tells me that Milan's captain Davide Calabria, he's most certainly under the microscope for the new coach. He's talked about how he likes the wingers to play in the same line along with his front three attackers. It forces essentially a numerical advantage of 5 players against an opposition of a 4-man backline. But naturally, it also leaves Milan prone to counterattacks from the opposition. He does talk about the importance of the fullbacks playing in conjunction with the wingers. Now, Theo and Leao already have that dynamic on the left flank, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of changes Milan makes to get the same attacking output from the right flank as well. Fonseca mentioned how during his Shakhtar Donetsk days, he played a system where the fullbacks played alongside the wingers in 90% of the matches in the league. However, in the Champions League and in the Europa League, you're more prone to the opposition having better quality, and in that type of a system, he'd have one of his fullbacks sort of stay further back just to give a little bit more balance in case of a counterattack. It has to be pointed out that the system that he played in Ukraine wouldn't just copy paste itself in Italy, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of adjustments Fonseca is forced to make when he comes back to Serie A. Fonseca's teams are known for their high pressing and aggressive defensive strategies. They always aim to win the ball back quickly after they lose possession, often pressing high up the pitch to disrupt the opponent's build-up play. When it comes to pressing, Fonseca's system is such where if the players maintain their shape and position, once they lose the ball, they can stop the team from hitting them on the counter. This is one of the reasons he prefers to play the attacking wingers on the inside and not wider. He believes if the possession is lost, it is easier to get it back when the attacking wingers are playing on the inside instead of on the outside, which makes sense because you're essentially closing down the passing lanes. Now look at this pressing style. If Milan is playing a 4-2-3-1 and the opposition has the ball, Fonseca likes his number 9 and 10 to advance and press up. If the attack is coming from the right back, then he prefers somebody like Leao to cover that man, the number 9 to cover the center back next to him, the number 10 to cover the third man in a possible triangle, and for the 2 midfielders to cover this particular space created diagonally. And back there, you'd have the right winger covering another one of the opponents. This way, you block the passing lanes and force the right back to send the ball back to the goalkeeper. And if they start from the middle, you already know that the number 9 and 10 are going to be pressing those center backs. And if they start from the left side, you simply replicate the system you created on the right side. Now, against tougher oppositions when his teams are playing in the Champions League, Fonseca talks about how he doesn't like to press too far up the pitch. He actually prefers his players to drop back a little bit to give some of the higher quality opponents and their attacking qualities a little bit more respect. It's interesting that Fonseca actually talked in an interview about how he prefers to play sides the opposition that is a high pressing side. He feels like he doesn't like to play as much against teams that sort of sit back. He'd rather they press because in his opinion, you end up finding a lot more space when the opposition is constantly pressing you compared to if they're just sitting back and, parking the bus. So Fonseca is known for his adaptability with his formations. He prefers to play a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-4-2-1 or even a basic 3-4-3, often tailoring his tactics with the strengths of his squad or even the weaknesses of the opponent. This could make his teams, more versatile and unpredictable. And during his days at Roma, he did change his system. Initially, he was playing a 4-2-3-1, but eventually he decided to switch to a 3-4-3. Now, as Fonseca himself pointed out, when in attack, the 3-4-3 actually looks pretty much identical to the attacking phase in a 4-2-3-1. It's the same 3 attackers up front. Now you have the wing backs that are moving up. And he explained that his reasoning for changing the system from a 4-2-3-1 to a 3-4-3 was because the opponents, a lot of the teams in Serie A, according to him, played in a manner similar to his own manner, which was with 5 attackers playing up front. He talks about how the additional man in attack from the opposition created an overload which would at times be tough to handle for the 4-man backline. So to eliminate the numerical advantage, he added the additional center back to his Roma side. Fonseca said that the attacking style he played with, he felt with an added center back, it gave some more stability to the backline in case the opposition hit them on the counter. Now, it's interesting to note that he made this change during his Roma days, during the end of the season. That Roma side had lost 3 matches in a row in July 2020. That's when he decided to make this change from a 4-2-3-1 to a 3-4-3. And to close off the final 8 matches of the season, Roma won 7 out of 8 and drew once. So Lille are known to make extensive use of the width of the pitch, with fullbacks or wingbacks playing significant roles in both defense and an attack. This stretching of play creates space in central areas for creative and more attacking movements. If you look at the 3-4-3 system that he implemented at Roma, you'll notice that in the attacking phase, the right back and the left back have even less of a defensive responsibility. And this is the sense that I got from Fonseca. I think he really likes to engage the fullbacks in the attacking phases of the game. And I think him becoming the coach of this team, it might actually possibly get even more out of Theo Hernandez and whoever Milan's right back is going to be next season. In fact, Fonseca in an interview made it a point to highlight how in the 3-4-3 he was able to get the best out of a player like Spinazzola, who's a very attack-minded player just like Theo Hernandez. Off the field, it is said that Fonseca values technically skilled players, but also tactically intelligent personalities. His trainings are reported to have sessions that focus on developing a deep understanding of his tactical demands and improving the decision-making of the players on the pitch. It's said that he demands his players to show some versatility and have the ability to adapt to changing scenarios inside of a match. He's also consistently been credited with developing young players, the development of youth, especially at his present club in Lille. There was an article that said that Lille in general has a strong tradition of developing young players, and Fonseca continued to integrate those young players into the first team. His coaching approach is set to nurture and bring the best out of young emerging talent. So when it comes to his system, the tactics on the field, Fonseca himself actually publicly said that he prefers the 4-2-3-1 more so than the 3-4-3. And considering that this is the system that Milan has played in the past and some of the tactics seem similar to that of Stefano Pioli, it isn't unfair for that journalist to come out and said that Fonseca's time is an extension of the Pioli era or the extension of the Pioli systems. Now, it must be said that the Pioli era, it saw this AC Milan team grow dramatically. This team essentially went from a ridiculed banter era club to a Serie A freaking champion. So will the Rossoneri see further growth in stature with high quality player additions and with the system tweaks of a younger and more European experienced coach? I guess only time will tell. Let me know what your general feeling about the official arrival of Paulo Fonseca is. Are you feeling optimistic about Milan's future? Are you feeling pessimistic? Or are you just waiting to see how this new coach's addition, some new transfers actually start to mold come, September, October? Make sure to let me know in the comment section. And from my side, as always, Forza Milan, grazie mille, ciao tutti.